From the Zimmerman Symphony Center in Canton, Ohio, this is Orchestrating Change. I'm Matthew Jenkins Yarashevitz, Associate Conductor of the Canton Symphony Orchestra.
And I'm Rachel Hegemeyer, Manager of Education and Community Engagement.
Welcome to our podcast, and thank you for joining us.
This podcast will navigate the problems that exist in the field of classical music and the world at large. We invite you to listen with open ears as our guests share their experiences as underrepresented professionals in the music industry.
Our guest today is award-winning singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, and producer Angie Haze. A native of Akron, Angie has the unique experience of being our only guest this season who does not come from the classical music world, though she has performed on the Canton Symphony's Divergent Sounds series, which pairs local, non-classical performers with chamber ensembles from our orchestra. She was also scheduled to perform with the full forces of the Canton Symphony Orchestra last May, a concert that was regrettably canceled due to the COVID-19 pandemic and will hopefully be rescheduled as soon as it's safe to do so. Angie Haze, welcome to Orchestrating Change.
Oh, thank you for having me.
We're so excited to have you. This is a very exciting conversation for me because we truly are getting someone with an outside perspective to tell us what is wrong with us, which is going to be great. No. We're very excited to have you today, and you're such a wonderful person. And I haven't been able to get to know you a ton, but I know Michelle has told me so much about you, so I feel like I do know you. And so I just wanted to start us off. You know, your life story is very moving. It's you've gone through a lot in your life, and you've come through and created something beautiful. So would you mind just sharing a little bit about yourself and your story, and why music is such an integral part of your life?
Okay. So, I decided to pretty much be an open book about my life, because I feel like that can be helpful to others who have maybe experienced some of the things that I have. And I know that for me, I was always looking for some sort of validation and others to relate to. But I do come from, a lot of a life of trauma and childhood abuse, sexual abuse, and which really, as you can imagine, impacted the way that I grew up, you know. So music, even from the time that I was like, I think I was 2 or 3, I would just cling to melodies. I could memorize stuff really fast. And so I remember even during some of the horrible things that would happen to me, I would go off into this like place of music where I would compose, I would orchestrate, I would imagine my band. I would imagine being on a stage. I would actually like compose melodies, and I would like of each instrument and orchestrate, like, you know, I just, and it's kind of interesting because my background, like growing up, I listened to a lot of classical music. I was really drawn to it. And so I was always pretending like I was, you know, like I was in charge of a symphony, and I don't know. I just naturally started to wander into that world of kind of taking me out of something horrible and creating something for my future. I just didn't realize how literal that was.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, for our listeners who are not familiar with the music industry and how it works, and especially the music industry outside of the orchestral world, how exactly do musicians make money? How do you have your careers? And tell us about the different facets of being a touring musician and a member of a band.
So this is such a good question because the industry has changed drastically. Like, you know, we went from, and I'm not that this doesn't exist at all anymore, but you know, we don't really, it's not heard of to just go to like a club and play and then be recognized and like some big label picks you up. That's just not how things go. And like they would put all this money into you, and then, you know, they basically might make money off of you. Unfortunately, the artists, you know, with this kind of deal would often be taken advantage of, which I think is why it kind of started to evolve, and artists started to kind of go, well, maybe I can do some of that stuff. Maybe I can get into production or work with somebody that I know that does production, record, and you know, eventually now we have like in-house studios, and people are like studying, you know, how to do all this production and mixing, and also like going, well, shoot, maybe I can just get a marketing firm to help me or do my own publishing. So it kind of evolved into a lot of artists taking control of their work. I kind of treated it like a business, like, well, I have to start a brand and think of myself as a brand and as a business, as a small business. So to make money, it's difficult. You know, you have to be really, really creative. Streaming doesn't make money. So you almost have to start at your home base and grow a following and market to your fans, you know, whether it's through your own merchandise sales and concerts. And you know, I have a Patreon now, especially now. Patreon.com/the Angie Haze Project. I'm just going to plug that in there. Yeah, so you just have to really be creative with how you run your business. You have to think about it, you know, as an artist being also a business, which is really difficult for a lot of us. But yeah.
You talk a little bit about creating a brand, and certainly part of that for you and part of the audience you're trying to reach are people who have had similar life experiences and life traumas as you have. Tell us a little bit about some of the interactions that you've had with your fans who have been through similar experiences, and what that experience has been like, hearing how your music has affected their lives.
That always gets me really emotional, actually. I mean, essentially that's the entire reason I'm doing what I'm doing. Sharing my story, and being able to help even just one person who's experienced trauma of any kind or anything similar to my, you know, my journey, just being able to move them in a positive way gives every single part of what I've been through worth. It's worth it to me. And so hearing people tell me that, you know, it's important that I'm sharing this part of my life, and that it gives them the validation and the courage to also share and also find their voice and their self-worth and importance, that just reminds me that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
I know, everyone experiences trauma in their life, and unfortunately for a lot of people, especially girls, sexual trauma can be a part of that. And I know that as someone myself who has experienced that, music was the thing that you pour yourself into. And I remember my senior recital happened in college, happened within a month of an experience that I had. And I just poured everything that I had into making this the best thing I possibly could. So when I listened to your music, which I didn't know in college, but now I know, and I listened to things like Gingerbread Man and, you know, all these different songs that are very impactful, it is empowering, and it is beautiful to hear, even though it's something so dark, because it shows how strong and resilient people can be to come out of these situations and to create something beautiful. And, you know, the music industry is full of people sharing their stories, and I'm so glad that you're able to do that and have created this brand of inclusivity and openness and communication, and people can't help but be moved when they hear your music. So thank you from me, and probably from a lot of other people, but yeah, it's just something really, really wonderful to hear. And I hope that you keep making music for a very long time. And I think it's interesting looking at how you make music and how COVID has affected what you do. And we were talking a little bit before we were recording about your new song and how you mixed everything and produced everything and did all this work. And you wouldn't have had time to do that if COVID hadn't happened. But can you maybe share a little bit more about some things that have changed because of the pandemic, and especially with things being online, and how to, you talk about, engaging with fans and having this base and having real connections. How do we do that when everything's online and we can't actually go out and sell t-shirts to people and hug people and have concerts at clubs and all of this other stuff? How do we, how has the music industry shifted during this time?
It's been really hard. I'm not going to lie. I went into like a state of panic right away, going, oh my gosh, how are we going to, how am I not going to go under? Cause this is my full, I'm a full-time musician. So, which has been so fantastic to finally get myself to that point. And last year I had done 2019, I felt like, oh, finally I'm going somewhere, I'm doing some stuff. And then it was like, wow, I just, 2020 just pulled the rug right underneath me. And so, I had to have my time to get really depressed because I just got to do that. I really believe in acknowledging it, feeling it right when it happens so that you don't drag it on for the rest of your life. So I did my time and then I was like, all right, I have to study. So I started to study streaming and how I could stream, on multiple, simultaneously on different platforms. And then So I put that together and was able to successfully do that. And I did like a 24-hour.
I remember that.
Yeah, it's 24-hour stream. I did 12 hours myself, and then the rest of my band each took over an hour, and that raised us. It was just, it was so great. People were so supportive. So people like donated to my PayPal and. For that, and so that really helped me get through the next couple months. And then I started working on the new album, and kind of randomly some little opportunities like to give music lessons. There was also some grants that I was able to get, COVID COVID grants specifically for artists, so that was helpful. It just it's still really difficult not having the performance part, for sure, the live performance part, and my band, my band, I feel like saying band, it gives it such little weight to what these people really are to me. They're really my family. They're my chosen family through and through, and what they bring is just what we give each other, I think, is just so much, and that's shared through music, which has just always been my dream, to have that. And so not having that has been really, really difficult. I mean, we keep in touch, of course, but not being able to see everyone and not being able to hug them when you see them, it's just really hard. But I have been truly, honest to God, I have been so very fortunate by both fans, family, and just like opportunities that have fallen into my lap during this time. So I do feel really, really lucky.
Yeah.
So have you been able to make music with any members of your band at all? And were any of them involved in your latest release?
So, yes. So we do have a quarantine series on YouTube. And so what I did was I would send them all a reference track. So I would record something with a click track and send it to them and go, listen to this on headphones and record your part, send it back to me. They'd send it back to me. I'd mix it all down and put it together, put a video together of all of us. So it was like, and we would for a while get so excited seeing ourselves with each other, even though we weren't really together. We would just get so excited about it. And so we did that for a while. And then with the new release, that was our next thing. We had, because it was nice outside in the fall, we started working on the music video. So we were doing everything outside, and we finally got to see each other. We were doing dance parts. Like it was just so fantastic. We were just it really lifted our spirits, I think. And to do something like that. So I have one of my bandmates too is also really involved in a lot of he's like a co-producer, second mixing engineer. And he also he helped me with End of Times, like fine tuning the mix, and then also did the video editing with my wife Meryl. So it's really cool that we have in-house. There's so many things that everyone can do. So I still was able to make it work with seeing and working with them. Just not a lot, not like especially during the winter time, it's harder. So
we took a similar approach with our youth symphony this year, having everybody record along with the click track, and then we put it all together on video, and we could see each other all on the same screen and hear each other. And it will never ever replace the experience of being there together, being present with one another, making music in person. But for the times we are living in right now, it was a very good substitute. And still, we were so happy we were able to still make music despite the times.
Right.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a blessing to make music when you can, and it was wonderful to see. The students worked so hard on it. You know how difficult it is to get things to line up and to mix it together. And Matthew put in a lot of time, and but it was wonderful just to see the students' faces when they got to actually see themselves on screen with everyone else, and it was really, really wonderful.
So I mentioned at the top of the podcast that you are a unique guest to the show this season because you are the only one not from the world of classical music, from the world of orchestral music. So talk a little bit about how you view our industry, the orchestral industry, as a musician, but a musician who is in a different type of music from what we do.
So, okay. I guess if we're talking about music, the music aspect of it, I love classical music. I grew up with it. I still want to incorporate some aspects, and I still do, into popular music. I know that we're in the industry now has changed a little bit, geared towards more of a minimalistic side, but I'm still kind of fighting in a way with utilizing more of a heavy orchestrated side of things, bigger arrangements. So with that said, as far as the industry goes, though, if we're talking business wise, like I am saddened to see that it's not as popular anymore, or it just doesn't seem like the audience is like, there's not as young of a crowd. It's not like I know that there's a fight for that right now. So, which does, it does upset me because I do value classical music. I do value everything that it's about, and the history of it. I think that maybe some things have to change in the terms of approach, maybe like market, like how it's presented. I don't know. I have no idea what that is. I'm not an expert at all. I do hate to see and anything be lost with that. It's I don't know. It's too important in my opinion.
Orchestras all over the country are trying to attract younger audiences. Why do you think that we as an industry what are possible reasons why we may be having trouble with this? And what could we do to make younger people feel like they're more welcome at a symphony concert?
So I think there are a couple things. So yes, You have to remember that right now, especially, we have these
Little
are
phone.
the phones, right? People, I think that what's changed drastically, one of the things, many things that have changed drastically in our tech world, as far as what attention spans, right? So everyone is so I need instant gratification, and I can't have my attention for more than like 15 seconds or something. That's why the things like TikTok, or there's just all of these things that are capturing young minds and eyes, and it just kind of, if there's not something that's in that package, then it's so hard to grab them. I mean, I'm even having to learn this myself. I've had to like study. For me, it's all about psychology. I need to figure out what's changing. How do I change? How do I still become, remain fresh? And what do I do to stay relevant? So I don't think it's necessarily a matter of that young people wouldn't like classical music, or don't feel welcome, or I don't think it's that. I think it's just about how to attract them with that being such a factor. The quick, the attention span not being there type, you know what I mean?
Right.
Or combining it with something that they can relate to. I truly believe in storytelling. I think if there can be a backstory to why something matters or should be heard, or I think there's something about that makes it really relatable to people, and even kids. That's something that always made a big impact on me, was when I could hear, why did this artist paint this, or why did they write this song, or what was the feeling behind that? Because then you kind of tie it to your own. If you can make it relatable, then you don't forget it, and then you want to hear it, and you want to be a part of it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's just my opinion. I don't know.
Sure.
I think,
yeah. I think that's a huge part of it. And going into looking at the classical music versus popular music, one of the biggest differences is the fact that words are present typically in one versus the other, and it's much easier to grasp onto words that you can listen to and understand, as opposed to something that it's all in your head of what maybe those words would be if words were to accompany it. Leaving out opera, leaving out operatic singing. So what do you think why are those words so impactful, and why do you think it does draw the attention of people? As you just said, you like the story, you like storytelling. What is it about words that just capture the attention of audiences maybe better than others?
So I think that like for me, I also love instrumental. Like I prefer to just kind of zone out and listen to something without any words. Like I do that really resonates. But I think if you're talking about an average or like a younger audience, I think it's like you're using two aspects. You're grabbing them emotionally with the music, but then you're also like kind of reiterating the fact with the words. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of, so it's not so lost. You almost need that like extra sense or extra some people just need that just to kind of like reiterate what it is. Because I even for myself, I originally started out with just like I would just compose on the piano, like pieces, and then people, you should sing something, so then I started singing something and then writing stuff. But even when I started out as a songwriter, my songs were so long.
I was gonna bring up the fact
they
that
were
you
so journey. Yeah, just like a journey, because in my head I'm hearing all these arrangements. I'm like, oh, but there's this string section here, and there's this and this and this, and so constantly would be told by, especially in industry, music industry people, you have to shorten your songs. You have to shorten your songs. the arrangements, you maybe make them shorter, or maybe not so much. And I'm just like, oh, that's hot. That's my favorite part. This is
Right.
where I come from. So I had to really figure out, how do I carve that out? What does that look like? How can I stay true to my arrangements and what I really love, but also put myself into this package so that it can be relevant and it can feed people.
Right.
So yeah, it's tricky, but and it's just really trying to figure that out. I think I don't know, adding some sort of, maybe even having somebody speak and tell the story of the song before it's played, or something, just something like that, just something to really, really, yeah.
I find it so ironic that a lot of times it's like shorten it, make the song shorter in the music industry in general, when one of the probably the most well-known songs ever that probably most Americans can sing, most people could sing, is Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yes.
Which
Yep.
broke radios with how long it was.
Yes, that's my favorite song of all time. I wrote a paper about that in college because exactly that reason.
Right.
Yep.
It broke the radio. People said it would never be played because it was too long.
And an even longer song is American Pie.
Right.
And it's such a classic now.
Yeah.
Yep. So it really, the trick, I think, is just to kind of give and take.
Right.
You find the moment you kind of just find the moments for it, and like and that's really what happened. It was like they were doing what they're labeled, doing what they were told, so to speak, and then it was like, here's this song, I'm just gonna make this just kind of slip this into this DJ, and he was like, I'm playing this, oh my gosh,
right. I think it's interesting.
Just kind of really like, there's a give and take there, I think, for sure.
Right.
So in the age of 4-minute songs and the desire for words and all of this that we're talking about, what is the what is the niche for long symphonies that have no words? And are there any other ways that we can, you've talked about a few, but any other ways that we can make this music feel relevant and relatable to a broader audience, such that they will not only sit through a symphony, but immerse themselves in it and really get as much or more out of the experience of being at a symphony, hearing a symphony, as they do of listening to their favorite hits on the radio?
I really think it's, you want to put on a show, like definitely like having the symphony, but like maybe video behind it, like making it just, it's really, really attacking the senses, so to speak. Like what can be interactive that really like pulls people into going, oh, wow, this, and not just like a video of just like slides, like just thing, but like really, really something that maybe is, that kind of tells that story. Just having maybe one more element of something that just can tie in what's being felt and what's being seen, just that's just an idea.
For sure.
Again, just kind of thinking about how young minds are and what they need. I really think kind of approaching it with more than just, listening,
right,
is really important,
right,
for them. And that's kind of, I'm always in that space of like, all right, how do I do the next bit? Like, all right, you guys, like I tell my band, all right, you guys are going to dance now. It doesn't matter that you have never done it or we're just going to do this. I know we're all uncomfortable and that's weird, but whatever, let's just do it because they will love it. It's just a matter of like, I want you to feel how I feel about music.
Right.
I want you to feel every single part of this, every part, even if the mandolin is playing 2 notes, I want you to feel that, it's so important. So something in my body has to change for you to feel that. It's such a level of like, it's not just like playing, it's like it's feeling, there's that connection of emotion that I think is so important to be translated. And sometimes it just has to happen with more than just performing, maybe, you know.
Right.
And all of this that you're saying, all musicians, no matter what type of music we play, all of us have had this experience. Music gives us an emotion that inside that we just need to share with the wider world, and whatever that music may be. We had our music director Gerhard Zimmerman as a guest recently, the other week, and he said, "Music is music." And you know, every human culture in the world has music of some kind, and so music does something for us, no matter what kind it is, that we just have to share. And I think if we in the classical music world can find a way to truly convey that and help people to see that this means as much to us and gives us as much to us as listening to Bohemian Rhapsody or something like that may to you. And so I hope that we can find a way to share that with the world.
Right. And you know, we've talked about this already. You know, we talked about this at the beginning when you were, you know, sharing a little bit about your life story, but how your music directly talks about and engages with difficult topics that a lot of people don't necessarily feel comfortable engaging in, like mental health and sexual assault and you know, these different topics. And because of that, your audience can get viscerally involved. And, you know, we were just talking about, like, you know, how do we get symphony audiences to feel viscerally involved with their music as well? You know, creating these touch points, like in your music, people have maybe a shared life experience that they can tie into. And so we're thinking about how do we get our audiences engaged that deeply. You know, it's like maybe just encourage them to move in their chair, just shake it up a little bit, you know, as they're listening to a concert. But, you know, I think this idea of engaging in deep emotions, sometimes our classical music audiences can be seen as very still, and that you sit in your chair and you listen and that's it. So what do you think is the added value when you engage in these emotions deeply and talk about these difficult topics and think about those things while we're listening to music? How could that help our audiences feel more connected to the music they listen to on our stages?
Yeah, so I think that there's that healing aspect, you know, like when a listener can really connect to those emotions, there's that we're talking about healing, where there's something in that music that nothing else can really reach. I don't think, in my opinion, there's that emotion. And what if, like, I don't know the likelihood of it, but there was some sort of like whatever piece it was, there was a backstory. We knew about what the composer was doing in his life at that time. We knew about why they wrote the piece, and then there doesn't have to be words during it or anything like that, but just to know that part and what was going on during those times, what were the people dealing with, what was you know what I mean? Just really, really kind of immersed in that, because that's stuff that people can find nuggets that they can relate to. Absolutely. And then just really like honing in on that beforehand, then listening to the piece. And then that just moves you even more, I think, because you're just like, oh my God, I can feel where they were clearly struggling with, famine or something, I can feel where there was war. I can imagine. And then you're just, some people just need that a little bit extra. Sure. But I do think it's so extremely important when you connect to it, when you can really fully immerse into it. I really, truly believe that having that relatable emotion shared, that's really where we find healing and connection to humanity and value and voice. Like, there's so many things there that I don't think anything else really has the ability to do,
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
So you alluded to this earlier. You mentioned your wife, Meryl, and you, of course, are a member of the LGBT community. How has this aspect of who you are affected your life experience and your experience in the music industry?
So, oh man, yeah, it has been hard. So here I've already had like the trauma part of life, of amongst other things to deal with, and then boom, I'm like, okay, now there's this piece. So it was really difficult at first. I thinking like, oh, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just be normal? I'm always having these things, like what's, just not being able to fit in or whatever. And then on top of which, the one thing that I'm chasing constantly has always been music, and to really pursue that and find it, figure out how to make it lucrative. And then to be told by actual like people in the industry that I had to hide that I had to be in the closet in order for them to sign me or move forward with me. I had to hide that, or, and grow my hair out and do all, like, basically be things I wasn't, not be so controversial, not be so open, like there's so many things. And so that was really difficult for me. And this was like even when I started to get into it more, like really, really pursuing my career. And that just really it really discouraged me for a really long time, but I kept going. I just kept going. And now with this new album pushing it, I have 4 different record labels interested in working with me, and I don't have to change any part, which is really nice. But it's like it took years to really like move and change in our society to be a little more accepting of that. But yeah, it hasn't been easy, that's for sure. It's been really hard.
Were you surprised that the industry was the way it was? Because I have to say, I feel like the arts of all places have for years, decades, even centuries, been a more open-minded sector of society, and music and art, all of those. And so did it surprise you that the industry was so closed-minded about that?
It honestly, it didn't, because it was coming from mostly straight men. And so my experience had been that I was supposed to be more of to extort, or whatever the word is, my sexuality, and that I was already in a man's world with the business side of things. And so yeah, I wasn't really surprised. That's kind of was my experience in the workplace in general. So then hearing that, no, it didn't surprise me. Because of the source. Now I felt like I knew they were wrong. I thought, well, you're an idiot. I know that there are, with the arts in particular, that there would be support, that there would be I would be in good hands. I just know it. But yeah, it's just not how it went at the time.
We've gotten to talk a lot on the podcast with women in very powerful positions in the world of classical music. And women are still a minority as far as leadership roles in our industry is concerned. But this is something that is slowly but surely starting to change. Would you say that the recording industry is the same? Are you starting now to meet more female executives at some of these record labels? Or do you think that this is a very serious, deep-rooted problem that is still at square one and has a long, long way to go?
So I still don't see a lot of females in those positions yet. but I do see a change in the industry as far as almost wanting more women to be in those roles, maybe, or the excitement of a female producer. Like I'm a producer, I don't just, yes, I write my songs. Yes, I perform my songs, but I also produce my songs. That means I record them all. That means I do the mixing, so the tech side of it,
Right.
and so finally, there's been more of an openness and an encouragement to that. And it's almost like it's kind of like like it's because it's rare and unique, then it's a little bit sought after now, I think,
Right.
which is kind of cool. But there's still not enough. I mean, there's not, and in those positions, I'm not seeing, like when I'm having these conversations with these labels, they're, typically male, in those positions,
Right.
a little bit here and there, but just not, at the top, like the CEO of the labels, it's not typically. So
Right.
I know it exists. I just, I don't, it's just not as much as I think it should be.
Absolutely.
Thinking a little bit about the Me Too movement that now feels like it was years ago, but it's still, still happening. That impacted the classical music world, just like it did every sector of society, with seeing how when someone's in a position of power, manipulation can happen that much easier. And knowing that happened with people who were, music directors or conductors or section leaders within the classical music world, and that came to light and hopefully will not be as much of an issue going forward. But I know that also this affects the music industry as well, the record industry and recording and labels. And how do you view, the Me Too movement and we've been talking about, people in power and getting more women in positions of power. What do you think the music industry needs to do in order to create a more balanced power between the sexes and, a shared experience and equity between everyone?
I mean, I think because that, the music industry isn't, unique in that way as far
Right.
as women not being pushed forward or supported or encouraged, as far as something to change that, I think just like kind of having more conversations or just having more opportunities really catered to females. I know that there are some grants that support. I don't know about, I just don't think there's enough. I think there needs to be a little bit more conversation awareness that just supports that, and really pushes the agenda, so to speak. Because it's really not. It's hard when it comes from such a male dominated place, and then you're the expectation and the standards are set, and almost for a woman in business in whatever industry it is to kind of not be as good or not go as far or just to kind of fail. So it's kind of it becomes really difficult to battle that, I think.
Right.
So really, I just think having the conversations more like we have been. I think the Me Too movement was incredible, just starting and like really getting it going. But I don't think we should stop the ball from rolling.
Right.
I think we really keep having the conversations. And I mean, really, Kamala Harris as vice president is a really good.
That's a big glass
really
ceiling shatter
right there.
Right.
That's such a so that's really fantastic. So I do think we are progressing in that way. I think we just keep the ball rolling. Keep moving forward and creating opportunity.
So something that often gets brought up in these conversations, and I think it's important to consider this, is as the world and the professions that exist in the world that have historically been dominated by white men become more diverse, there are many, many people that celebrate this and see the beauty in having a diverse world, diverse society, and diverse representation within professional worlds. Regrettably, there's another sector of that group that feels threatened by an increase in the diversity. And how can we, rather than lecturing about why diversity is a good thing, how can we sort of bring them along with us in a way that they realize that this isn't threatening to them, that in fact it's going to be a better thing for everybody at the end of the day to have these diverse perspectives at the table?
Yeah, so I think you know, a big part of that is showing it. So like for me, my band is made up of such a diverse group of people, different races, different cultures, different religions, different backgrounds, different ages. Like, I mean, like it's really cool. And that's, which is really the thing that I love about that so much is, like I said before, we are family. We are a chosen family. And I was so dead set on finding that. And even as a child, I know it's going to sound weird, but when I would go off into these, when I would kind of drown myself in the music scene during some the traumatic events that I was going through, I would envision my band. And it was always people that were diverse and a huge band with like all tons of different kinds of instruments and like, you know, strings and horns, like just bringing all these worlds together. I was so about really trying to unite that. And so my goal was to really show off their voices and who they are as people. And so yes, it, you know, it is my music, I'm the artist, but more than that, look at everyone that's a part of this, and maybe somebody in the audience can find someone that looks like them or that they relate to in some way, and so that they can feel like they're a part of it too, and they can see how awesome that's not what the diversity is what makes us strong. The diversity and the inclusivity is really what makes us powerful and appreciate each other that much more. And so I think just really showing it, really the why, instead of even just talking about it, sometimes just look, here it is, you know, here's an opportunity where everyone is different. And yeah. So
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the way that you have been involved with the symphony is through more of the pop side of things here at the Canton Symphony. And pop's concerts have become a mainstay at most orchestras, but some audiences see them as you know, a necessary evil just to make some money, because it's not, you know what I like. It's it's what you like do to make money. Right. And it's pop's concerts typically bring in a different set of audiences, but they don't usually translate over to the classical music concerts. The audiences, you know, don't typically trickle over to what would be considered just like just the classical music concerts. So how do we consider pop's audiences to give classical music a try, but then at the same time, how do we show our classical audiences that these pop's concerts are just as valid and just as wonderful as what is seen as the very traditional method of presentation of music?
I mean, I think the pop's concerts are so very cool to bring those two worlds together.
Right.
I think it's so important. And even as, you know, my band, when we got our opportunity to work with Canton Symphony, we were all just so pumped and so excited, and we were in tears half the time going, oh my gosh, this just, it adds that much more, you know, to it. So as far as the crossover goes, that is difficult. That's hard to figure out what that would be, how to market to that. And I think a part of it is just, like I said, trying to figure out how to package it on both ends. Like, really making it that, even in like quick little something, like marketing parts that are just kind of going, okay, like I've even had to start TikTok. I don't like, I don't know. I have a really hard time with social media stuff. I really truly don't. I have a hard time. I don't enjoy it so much. I love people, but I just don't like spending so much time on those things. It's hard for me. So I have to train myself to make it like a game. Or make it like an instrument. Oh, this is like learning an instrument. Then I'm okay. So yeah, really, I have to kind of think about it in those terms. So I think really just as far as the marketing part of it goes, like both ends like can kind of, if coming together and trying to figure out how to package those in a different way, like an opposite of what you're normally doing.
Yeah. I like that thought of we market them and talk about them like they're so drastically different things. And maybe if we talked about them as if they were something very similar.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like
I
just
understand.
The opposite. Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful idea, because like we mentioned before, Gerhardt said music is music. So why do we talk about it in such a different light? I think that's really interesting. Yeah.
And the people who come to the pops, in the very least, they appreciate that their community has a symphony orchestra.
Oh, for sure.
And they appreciate what the orchestra adds to this music that they know and love. The music of Queen, for instance, which we did just before the pandemic to a sold-out crowd.
It's crazy.
Or to your music, to your fans who came to hear you at the Divergent series. I am sure that they really appreciated what the musicians of the Canton Symphony brought to your sound.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh, yes. Absolutely. Still talking about it. Yes.
So I think we need to, both of our sectors of our audience appreciate that their community has a symphony orchestra.
Yes.
And if we start there and can use that as a starting point for both audiences, that's our common ground. And somehow from there we can move forward.
Right.
Yeah, I totally agree. I agree. I think it's just kind of forcing yourself to think out of the box in those terms instead of doing what you've always done, and it's not growing. Then sometimes it's hard to you just got to kind of step out and go, okay, but what can I do that's the opposite of this? That's with the same message, but just the opposite of how it's presented, maybe.
Right.
Kind of revamping that a little bit.
What do you think that we here at the Canton Symphony could learn from your band? What could we learn from how you all do your music?
Oh, I mean, I guess I think what could be kind of cool is getting to know everyone individually. Like if everyone kind of talked about who they were and what just to kind of get a little more personal connection to every single to the people who are playing, again, utilizing things like TikTok, because that's really what's so cool. Like having a lot of my bandmates, they're on social media, they're on, and then people connect to them, and then they even come to see us as a whole because they've connected to one of them even more so, which is awesome. It's about, because that's what it's about. It's how I really relate to this person, and this is what's coming out of them. And that's really cool. So yeah, maybe something along those lines, and really kind of just honing in on that emotional connection to the human, and then bringing out the emotion side of what the music is saying.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it can be hard at times because in a place like Canton, we're a part-time orchestra. So almost everybody in the orchestra doesn't live in Canton. And the reason is these people are playing, they cobble together their living by playing not only here in Canton, but in the Akron Symphony, in the Erie Philharmonic, even in the Toledo Symphony,
Virginia,
or the Kalamazoo in Michigan. And so some of these people live a few live in Canton, a number live near, but some live in another state.
Right.
See, even that, like knowing that, I think highlighting the parts of what makes the Canton Symphony Orchestra unique, and then going around and like highlighting each person maybe, and just like talking again, it's all that backstory.
Right.
That's what makes you special. And then kind of why the pieces you chose, and why, and what does it mean to you as the musician playing it, like all of that stuff. I really just think that it's a matter of like relatable, like making it relatable, making it personable. Because even though like everyone's from somewhere different, I think that's really cool. Like use that, that's really awesome. How cool that everyone's from somewhere, but like that's so wild, so yeah, kind of just looking at what you have already, and telling the story behind it and why. And I think that it's hard. It's funny because like I at first I was like, no one's gonna care about this or being interested in this. And then sure enough, it was like, oh gosh, people really like, because they can relate to it. It's always because they can relate to it.
Right.
So now you make it more relatable, and then they're just like, they want to be a part of it.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
So where do you see the music industry going in the future, in the near term, in the far term, and the industry as a whole? What this popular sector, the classical sector, where do you see the future of the music industry going?
I mean, so I hope that we get back into playing live concerts again. That's my
Absolutely.
Right.
So that's the first and foremost thing. And I think we will get there again. I'm not, I'm not worried that has to happen. I just think that we're just around the corner from it. But I also think that we're in a space that's kind of cool right now with the pandemic, because we've really had time to see what it's like without live concerts. So people have had some time to kind of go, and honestly, like I feel like I've gotten more support during this time than ever before.
That's accurate for the symphony as well.
Because they know, right. And I think a big part of that is because we're not there. We're not out, so I think I do feel as though there was like, oh no, we're realizing this is so important and we can't lose that. And so my hope is that that isn't forgotten, and I do believe that will stick with some people, and it'll make them maybe appreciate that much more once we're all playing out again.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you see people flocking to live concerts again when the pandemic is over? And do you see all of us as performers, do you see us being able to sustain a heightened level of interest following the pandemic? Or do you think it's going to be a spike and then sort of back to life as usual pre-pandemic?
And if there is that spiked interest, how do we keep it going?
Exactly.
That's the thing. Yeah. So I think there will be those who it won't be lost on. I think there will be a group, however many people that they'll go hard, so to speak. They'll be like at all the concerts and flocking to them, and but yeah, as far as there being, I do think that it'll spike. We'll be like, yes, and it'll be exciting again. But that will be key for us as musicians and artists, and everyone in this industry, to take that and keep making it fresh.
Right.
Keep giving them, I don't know. I always like to think of everything in terms of themes, and like, okay, we did this. This was the theme, these were our costumes for it. This was the premise, and this was the story, and we had video, and we had, you know, whatever, all these aspects of it. And now that one's done. Now let's move on to the next one. So I'm always kind of thinking of it in terms of like, what's the next thing? What's the next theme? What's the next, to give people something that's just that they can come and see. And really, like, I just feel the reason you go to concerts is because so you can immerse in it, right? And so like it's, as opposed to just like listening to it at home and going, oh, and if you go to a concert and it's just the same as listening to it at home, then why go to the concert, you know? So I think that there's almost a responsibility on our end to give them the reason. And that could be so many things. That could be like a flash mob in the audience. That could be, you know what I mean? Like just really, really, really making people, giving them something, you know? And so I'm always just kind of thinking of that for concerts, always just thinking ahead of what that would look like.
And I think that's something interesting for the, you know, the classical music, the orchestral music industry to think about as an industry who is notoriously stuck in the past. How do we, taking this music that we play that is, you know, hundreds of years old, but giving it a theme, giving it a frame, and presenting it in a way that is fresh and new and exciting, so that when people come to the concerts, they are engaged with something that's not 4 minutes long. They're engaged with something that's almost an hour long. And, you know, it's something that we have to take on, and we have to try our darndest to put something together that is worthy of someone getting off their very comfortable couch, buying a ticket, and sitting in a chair to see us. Because I know after sitting, like maybe people are ready to get off their couch, but my couch is really comfortable. I do like my couch. It's really nice.
I get that. Totally.
But I do think, fortunately, that this time has made all of us realize just how important live performance is to us. And that, you know, I have a wonderful record collection, vinyl record collection. I love vinyls.
Same.
But there is simply no replacement for being in the room, hearing it from their instruments to my ears. And there's just no replacement for that. And I'm sure that people, that I can't be the only one out there that feels that.
Oh, no, you're not. I think there's like when you can hear the frets squeak, or you can see the bow, like the bows, like the hairs flying, or, you know, or just the sweat of a musician. It's also, that's why you go. Yeah, absolutely. And I think just like really maximizing that even more so on our ends, like going for even like putting musicians in the audience, like staging them while they're, you know, playing among people, and just like really feeling like make people uncomfortable, because that's like, it's uncomfortable for only a very short time, and then it's something they'll never forget for as long as they live. It's like,
and you know, pieces that incorporate exactly what you're just talking about. I had an experience, I think I was 12, and my parents took me to see the Verdi Requiem played by the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra. And there is a moment in the tuba miram where there are offstage trumpets throughout the hall.
Yes.
And we were sitting in the balcony, and one of them was probably 15 feet away from me. And the moment that they all started to play, I just was in total awe of the experience.
Yes.
It was, I mean, for little 12-year-old me, it blew me away.
Yes.
And I still remember it.
Exactly.
To this day.
Exactly.
I'm 30 and I still remember it.
Exactly. And that's what I think that needs to happen more. Like that, we can't be afraid of doing things like that. I know that it's not always easy with sound and whatnot, but just trying to do it. Like that was a kind of a moment for me, just pushing myself to go out, like here we are on the stage, and I would make myself go out into the audience, even if with the band, like we're starting out in the audience maybe, and we're singing in harmony, or we're just, or just really, really trying to interact. And that's the stuff that people are just like, because it's right in their face.
Right.
And then they keep coming back because they want more of it. They want that experience again. So I think we have like that obligation to really give it to them.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
So, as we finish up today, any final thoughts on how we here at the Canton Symphony Orchestra can orchestrate change?
So you said something about being stuck in the past with certain approaches, and I think maybe just thinking about that a little bit. And I as an artist, I have had to do the same thing. Like, this is how I've always done it. This, here is a long song and these are the arrangements, and I don't want to use samples, and I won't, but honestly, like with this new album that I'm doing, because I've been able to let go of that, letting go of the past on so many levels too, emotionally, like with what I've been through, like letting go of the past, and really, really honing into the present, like what's happening right now, and how can I let go of that, still be me, and not compromise that, but do something really, really special and new. And so I think there's just kind of considering that the psychological aspect of it, can really, really benefit and be effective in the business side of it. Yeah,
For sure.
Well, Angie, thank you so much for joining us today, and for talking and for sharing, and also for the music that you make and how you lend it to the Canton Symphony every once in a while. And just thank you so much for being brave and sharing your story, and it's very much appreciated. And I know that the Canton Symphony audience members enjoy your music just as much as we do. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you both. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being with us today. Angie Haze, an award-winning singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, and producer.
This week, we found out there is a second Orchestrating Change in the media. It's a highly acclaimed new documentary that tells the inspiring story of Me Too/Orchestra, the only orchestra in the world created by and for people living with mental illness. Me Too's mission is to erase mental health stigma one concert at a time. This groundbreaking orchestra has created a transformative model of inclusion and compassion, and is demonstrating music's undeniable power to enhance our lives. To learn more, please go to the film's website, orchestratingchangethefilm.com.
Orchestrating Change is a production of the Canton Symphony Orchestra.
Our theme music was composed by Eric Gould and performed by Derek Snyder and Tim Adams.
Our audio engineer is Nathan Maslick.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.